This is Straight No Chaser Talk Radio. We're just getting started. Straight No Chaser Talk Radio.
He's drinking that with no chaser.
This is Straight No Chaser Talk Radio. We're just getting started. Straight No Chaser Talk Radio.
He's drinking that with no chaser.
This is Straight No Chaser Talk Radio. We're just getting started. Straight No Chaser Talk Radio.
He's drinking that with no chaser.
Yeah, he's recuperating somewhere.
Pastor C, hope you're doing well. And Chief, today we just gonna talk about whatever. There's so much other has happened. No more killings or shootings or anything like that. I mean, we've had a whole lot of goings on with NASCAR, and we've had some election there out in Mitch McConnell's state out there. We've got a primary election going on there that I don't know if they've decided. When I left, it was too close to call. You know, last time I checked, I don't know if they've changed that or not. Between young brother out there and who's trying to do his thing in the legislature and take on Mitch McConnell. Still got a underlying tension across the nation everywhere that we go. You're just feeling something. They laid to rest young brother in Atlanta, in Georgia. It's just trying to take a breather and trying to pull ourselves together and just kind of try to make sense of all of this nonsense. What are you thinking, Chief? I mean, I'm just kind of winded, defeated a little bit, but it's still another round. Still got to get up and fight. You just feel a little, not defeated. I shouldn't say defeated. That's a bad word. I don't feel defeated. Just tired. And that tired that comes from being, just exhausted from foolishness. That mental tiredness, where you got to sit back and kind of retool and refill yourself and recharge yourself and get ready for the next phase, whatever that is. The more this goes on, the more ridiculous folks in Washington, D.C. seem to be. We still have this pandemic, underlying this whole thing. As we get closer to the end of the summer, universities about to be in place, and students are contemplating getting back to going to school. And what does that mean in the midst of a pandemic? What happens as people are talking about all the virologists and folks like that talking about, they're pretty much saying a second wave is all but inevitable. If we look at the other countries that are going through their second waves and what's that's doing to their populations. So, Chief, where do we go? Which thing do we tackle first? What do we hit first?
Well, there's so much that's going on. You have the situation in Texas. We're talking police reform. There's just a lot going on. I guess we can start right with your bailiwick then, Bad. You were a legislator back in the day. And
legislator now.
Exactly.
I'm step 12.
Oh, really? You at step 12?
I'm trying to get there.
There you go. There you go.
I still haven't fully recovered. See, I'm still lying.
So, in light of that, I just wanted to find out from you, what is the problem in the Senate with getting some legislation going about this whole use of force thing? Now, I've said in previous shows that I'm not advocating disbanding police departments. I think that's a bit much. And I think that most experts would agree that you can always use improvement no matter what you are, where you are, or what you are. Mm-hmm. And so I looked at what the House Democrats were looking at as opposed to the GOP. Now, the Democrats, they wanted no chokeholds, a national registry for problem officers. They wanted to amend the immunity law. And, of course, they wanted to ban the no-knock warrants in drug cases. And on the GOP side, they were looking for incentives for reducing chokeholds, the states maintaining a registry of misconduct, no amendments to the civil rights law, and, of course, keeping the qualified immunity. And it just seems like the Democrats are just saying no on this thing. And it doesn't appear that there is a whole lot of willingness to negotiate, at least at this point, what I was hearing on the news as of about an hour ago. So I'm just asking you, Thinbad, from the legislative perspective, what's the problem?
I don't know. I mean, everything is so political and hyper political. It becomes really frustrating. You're following closer than I am because I'm busy, trying to get folks ready to go back to school. But you're following closer than I am in terms of that whole piece. I mean, they've even, the pandemic has become politicized. I mean, you're talking about the chokeholds, and some of these things seem to be sensible enough that you would think if they're not going to do it now, when are you going to do it? But you wait for the federal government to do some things, and I think can. But I would imagine there are some things that local municipalities could do too. That mayors could do things with their police chiefs and kind of talk about their police forces. Can they not? Would they? It seems to me, now that we're going in your neck of the woods.
Oh, you just gonna punt it back? Okay, I got you.
It's just in your neck of the woods until they can get the feds.
Touchdown. 3 points.
If we, I mean, certainly they're going to need some federal help.
Sure,
sure. Things that you can't get done without some of the federal help for sure. But I think there's some things that they could start. Imagine if all the mayors decided, you know what, we're going to end this stuff. We're going to outlaw chokeholds and have our police chiefs, outlaw chokeholds and handle it on the local basis. And then, if almost forcing the feds' hands to do something. Like the whole country is saying this is the way we're going. And you don't want to be behind in that. But with this, the problem is who we got in the White House doesn't know a damn thing about playing politics.
Sure,
at all.
sure.
I mean, so you talk about a wild card. Who knows what in the hell that cat's going to do from one thing to the next. So, it's like trying to have a battle of wits with an unarmed person. You just can't do it. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. It's just clearly there are political things at stake. And I don't know if the Dems are trying to just push the envelope to kind of make somebody do something really stupid or say something really dumb, and then seize on that. I mean, we're so close to the presidential election at the same time. We're seeing Joe Biden and all of these other commercials and everything is just getting so convoluted. And and what's getting missed in the middle of this stuff is the pandemic piece. That's still out there.
Right.
That's still out there in all of this stuff. Oddly enough, I don't know if there's any reading on has there been a spike since all the protests in some places? I mean, some areas there's a spike, but is there any evidence that is due to the protests or things that have gone on since the George Floyd thing? I mean, I'm just all over the place, I know, but this is how my head is feeling.
Right.
I can't settle on any one thing. Everything is
Sure.
Like,
well,
gravy on your plates.
That's right.
All your food across the Thanksgiving table.
Well, let me go back to the point you were making about police reform.
I didn't even
yes, you did. I found one, man. I'm with you. I'm with you. Yes, sir. I'm with you. So, getting back to the whole piece about police reform. Now, you're absolutely right from the sense of, the mayors and governors could certainly come in right now and say there will be no more of this and no more of that. They absolutely can do that. Right. The mayors and city councils and county councils and town councils across the country could say this is how our police force is going to reform itself. Conversely, they could say we don't feel there is the need for reform and we're moving forward. So all the assorted jurisdictions do have that authority right now that they really don't need to wait for the feds. Now, everyone, of course, is looking to Congress and so forth for leadership because the protests were occurring in every state in the union. Even Alaska had protests, during this whole 12-day period. So the awareness is there. But now we have to find out, is the desire and the ability there? And Thin Bad, one of the things you've heard me say, and I just have to keep saying this, is that law enforcement officials, whether you're federal, state, or local, you receive your authority from the people. The people have said that we have the confidence in you because you have been selected and trained based on certain standards. And because of that, we're going to give you the authority to detain people, to arrest people, to question people, of course, when it's appropriate. And then, of course, if you face certain circumstances that are reasonable and legal, we also give you the authority to take a life. Now, that is a huge burden on that community. And also, serving your community as a public safety person is a privilege. It's not a right. It's not guaranteed. It is a privilege. And so I think that everyone needs to recognize that. But also we need to recognize that police officers are human. They have issues, they have families, they have bills, they have the irritating brother-in-law, they have all those things like any profession. That's right. And they are going to make mistakes. Now, you notice I said mistakes. Now, when officers make mistakes, there are remedies to correct that. You can use training, you can use reprimands, you can use policy, you can If it's that big of a mistake, you can even subject that officer to termination. So there are remedies available to correct mistakes, depending on what it was. Also, let me separate that from what we had in the George Floyd case. That, in my opinion, was intentional. When you have a young man screaming for help, you have citizens saying, "Hey, he's losing his consciousness," and then you have an officer look up as almost as to say, "This is what I do." Right. That was intentional, and so I think the world would agree, and the world has spoken out. And you have police chiefs all over the country and sheriffs and commissioners saying that was nonsense. So there is a separation between intentional and mistakes. So I do not advocate throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I think that in order to get true reform, you need to have everyone at the table, all the stakeholders, the citizens, police officers, Congress people, the FOP, IACP, Noble, everyone that